The silence of 3 months. Grayhaven was a small place wedged between the shore and the forest. It was neither exactly a town nor a city. Its wind came from the sea, licking the church bell and disappearing among the old roofs. The sea resembled the hearts of those who lived here, wide, cold, but hiding something inside. On winter mornings, the sea and the fog turned into the same color. No one knew where the horizon began. Only the line between the ones who left and the ones who stayed disappeared. Noah Ellison, walking through the silence of this town that morning, realized with every step that he was becoming a little more foreign to his own shadow. The words spoken in Dr. Keats's office were still echoing in his mind. Cancer, metastasis, 3 months, 3 months. There was no punishment heavier than reducing time to a number. When he left the hospital corridor, there was a folded piece of paper in his pocket. On it were numbers, terms, and an impossibly calm death date. Everything suddenly went quiet. The sound of cars, the cries of the seabirds, even the beat of his heart. The world seemed to have already left him behind. When he returned home, there was a half-finished wooden sign on the table. A name about to be written in silver-gilded letters. Porter and Sons Carpentry. An order from a neighbor, a job he had been postponing for weeks. He reached for the brush, then put it down. The concept of next week no longer existed for him. That night he found an old notebook. Thick, black-covered, corners worn. On the first page he wrote in big letters, "To-do list." Then below it, 4 names: Carter Blay, Judith Pike, Lane Porter, Victor Hale. They all had one thing in common. Each had taken something from him in one way or another. Carter Blay had been his coach in high school. When Noah was 17, he sprained his ankle on the track, and while he was waiting for help, Blay accused him of weakness. He had stood there in shame among the crowd. That shame had grown silently for years into a wound. Judith Pike was the owner of an agency. She had stolen a design Noah had created and submitted it to the municipality under her own name, taking the award for it. Noah's effort had disappeared on someone else's shining stage. Lane Porter had once been his closest friend, but later he had made fun of Noah's sister Paige's private messages in a bar, humiliating her. Victor Hale was the landlord who had rented him a house for years. He had not repaired the leaking roof and, on a Christmas night, had watched Noah shiver under the dripping ceiling, saying, "The rain will stop anyway." That night, Noah sat by the notebook for a long time. Under each name he added small notes. Wounds don't close, they just go silent. Then he closed the notebook. Days chased one another. Between hospital appointments, he was rehearsing his own death. Each morning when he looked in the mirror, his face became a bit more unfamiliar, his eyes sank a bit deeper. But at the same time, something inside him began to move. Cold, planned, steady liveliness. The smell of death strangely sharpened life. Noah started with Blay. The coach was still working at the town high school. He began to watch him, around the school, in the evenings, from a distance. Blay was still the same, shouting, humiliating, feeding on the children's fear. Noah found old student reports thrown into the trash container behind the back gate. Competition dates, lists of injured children, unexplained penalties. One night he entered the office inside the school. Among dusty trophies, he found an old photograph, a young Blay with his hand on a boy's shoulder. The date was written on the back the year Noah was injured. That smile from the past now felt like a slap. Noah collected all the documents and sent them to the sports board inspection via anonymous email. At the end of the file, he wrote a single sentence. Some victories are built upon the bodies of silent losers. A week later, a short news appeared in the town newspaper. An investigation has been launched against Carter Blay. When Noah saw the news, he felt nothing. No joy, no conscience, only a tired silence, as if a stone had been thrown into the sea and settled at the bottom. For Judith Pike, the plan was more complicated. The woman still ran the town's only advertising agency. She was working on a new municipal project, Grayhaven Coastal Renewal Design. Noah sat at the cafe on the street next to the office at night and watched through the window. On Judith's desk lay one of his old sketches, the curvy letter design she had stolen years ago. Noah found the files from years before on his computer. Date stamps, email records, PDF outputs. There was proof. This time, he opened an anonymous blog, published a post titled "The Queen of Copy." The post spread quickly in the town forums. The municipality stopped the project. Judith had to make a public statement. But from the lines around her eyes, he knew she had broken for the first time. The second slash was drawn in the notebook. Noah now tried to appear normal during the day, and at night he slipped into the invisible side of the town. The thought of death wrapped him like a protective armor. He had nothing left to fear. Blay had been suspended. Judith had lost the project. Next was Lane. Lane Porter was still in the same bar. Once a friend, now a stranger he knew from afar. Noah went to the bar and watched him. He noticed how fake Lane's laughter was, how silence followed his jokes. One night, he found a backup file on his old hard drives. The backup app, once installed on Page's computer, had kept the original versions of those humiliating messages. Noah hacked into the bar's electronic display and briefly posted one of those messages there. It lasted only a few minutes, but it was enough. The town talked about it the next day. When Lane opened the door that morning, all eyes were on him. People's silence was like a judgment. The third slash was drawn in the notebook. Victor Hale was the last. He lived in a red brick building on the outskirts of town. He bullied tenants who couldn't pay rent and ignored malfunctions. Noah dug out old contracts, bank receipts, repair invoices. The money he took under roof repair had no record. Some of the documents sent to the municipality were fake. Noah compiled them and forwarded them to the authorities. 2 weeks later, Victor's shop was sealed. People saw officers entering inside. The fourth slash was drawn in the notebook. Noah closed the notebook that night. He sat by the window. The streetlights of Grayhaven flickered like faint yellow dots. Even the shadow of death no longer felt so heavy. There was a sense of completion, but at the same time, silence, as if life were taking one more breath before ending. The next morning, the phone rang. Dr. Keats's voice was trembling but official. There had been a mix-up in the lab. Samples had been switched. A misdiagnosis. There was no cancer. The 3 months did not belong to him. Noah said nothing for a long time. On the other end of the phone, the voice continued, offering apologies, medical explanations, but he no longer heard the words. He was sinking under dark water. That water was the water of his own conscience. The following days passed in a blur. Grayhaven was the same, but now everything looked different. When he walked through those streets, even hearing the echo of his own steps hurt. People still read newspapers. The smell of bread still spread from the bakery. But Noah met his own shadow at every corner. Blay had been dismissed. Judith's agency was about to close. Lane had left the bar. Victor's property had been seized, and Noah knew he was not dying. One evening he reopened the notebook. Between its pages, dust particles had fallen like tiny remnants. He asked himself, if life is this fragile, why is revenge so easy? He couldn't sleep at night. Behind his eyelids appeared four faces. In each of them was a fragment that had once belonged to him. Shame, anger, pain, childhood. One night, he saw someone in front of the hospital garden. He recognized her, June Harrow, the nurse, one of the first who had conveyed the diagnosis. As always, she was quiet. There was a strange calm on her face. Noah watched her from afar. June looked at her cell phone, then crumpled a piece of paper and threw it into the trash. The wind blew the paper onto the ground. Noah went closer and picked it up. On the paper was the hospital emblem, a list of names. Beside them, code numbers. At the top, June Harrow. Next to it, a diagnosis note. The same type, the same code. Below it, Noah Ellison. Suddenly, the word mix-up from that morning gained meaning. Samples had been switched, but between whom? June's name stood next to her own code. A coldness filled him. June carried the same diagnosis as he did. Or perhaps that diagnosis had belonged to June from the beginning. Maybe what was wrong had never been wrong at all. Noah heard faint footsteps coming from inside the hospital. June was walking down the corridor, holding an envelope. She left it at the reception, then walked out the door. She disappeared into the wind. Noah realized that same envelope had been left in his mailbox a few hours later. His name was written on it. Inside was a short letter. I need to confess something to you. That day, I confirmed the diagnosis in your name, because I knew my own results. They told me 3 months. At that moment, your file had been mixed with mine. When I noticed the mistake, I stayed silent. Maybe I thought something would be born out of your fear. Maybe I couldn't handle my own fear. I watched you. I didn't hate you. I was only curious. Who does a person become when faced with death? I saw the answer. Now my 3 months are ending. There was no signature, but even from the smell of the ink he knew who had written it. That night he walked down to the seashore. The sky was the color of lead. The sound of waves mixed together, the direction of the wind uncertain. When he reached the shore, he had brought the notebook with him. He tore the pages one by one. 4 names, 4 slashes, 4 pieces. He threw each into the sea. The papers got wet and slowly sank. He held the last page in his hand. It was a blank page. On it, he wrote the final sentence. The 3 months did not belong to me. Then he closed the notebook. When morning came, the town was quiet. Newspapers opened with a new piece of news. June Harrow passed away during her night shift at the hospital. As Noah read it, the wind from the sea moved the curtain by his window. For a moment, a sliver of light entered the room. At that moment, he understood. Life was sometimes a story that a person did not write with their own hands. But in the most unexpected moment, they could take the pen back. That day, someone was walking on the small path leading to Grayhaven's beach. In their hand, they carried the last page of a notebook. On it were faint traces of ink. A wave hit the shore. The page got wet. The wind left it on the surface of the water. When the page opened, another line appeared beneath the first, as if formed by the leaking ink. No revenge can ever be as wrong as a mistaken death. And at that moment, the sea took something back.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next story.